Another thing that's worth bearing in mind, and that could help you get ideas for building e-services or m-services, is that instant communication is now being increasingly guaranteed wherever you are and whenever you are. We've seen one of our low-budget airlines, Ryanair, with extensive flights across Europe, has recently broken through that taboo of having mobile availability on board an aircraft. Many people argued against it, thinking, my God, I'm 9.5 hours from London Heathrow, to Seattle, and I got somebody next to me for 9.5 hours going, yap, 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 yes, I'm on the plane, yes, I'm on seat G3. Oh, please, forgive me, I don't want this. But Ryanair decided to go ahead with it, and in fact, when I flew on Delta between London and Denver, guess what was being promoted on board that flight this Christmas and New Year? Sponsored by Google Chrome, yeah. Was free Wi-Fi. So my wife immediately got out her iPhone, hey, I'm surfing, fabulous, isn't this good? 35,000 feet. Try it just for the fun, and then read a book or watch a movie. my preference. Yeah, there's Delta, in-fly, Wi-Fi access. But at the same time, we were getting new freedoms in the online world. We were getting new restrictions. And as marketers and as e-business strategists, we're very well aware of these. Some of them are political and ideological. For example, we've known for a long time that China has an army of people trying to monitor and censor the internet. They have their own state firewall in place. Iran blocks about 5 million websites, including all the major 8, 9, 10 social networking sites. So if you wanted to do marketing to Iran, forget those currently its channels for your marketing efforts. They're not going to work. But before you accuse me of being very parochial, look what's happening in the UK. Just recently, by which I mean 3 days ago, there was a national report suggesting that our OFT, which is our monitoring and regulatory authority for online traffic and telecommunications, was thinking of clamping down on certain Twitter endorsements because of abuse on it. Okay? People twittering and saying something untrue about products and services which they knew to be untrue. How many of you have been following the WikiLeaks explosion? Well, at least 2/3, excellent. And you realize that in the US, while it was okay in previous leaks to have leaks on Middle Eastern countries and Far Eastern countries and Latin American countries, now it's got a little bit closer to home. Julian Assange is now being charged, amongst other things, with treason. And in fact, in a report I read just yesterday, a senior lawyer in the United States says we must extradite him, and the penalty we are seeking is the death penalty. So just think about these things when you next design some messages to go on your marketing website. Okay? Just be very, very careful. Things are getting a bit like the Wild West here. I love Western films, and what's happening on the internet and the web reminds me hugely of what was happening in the 1880s and 1890s, 120, 130 years ago.
I think it's always a good idea before you send something to think about what you're sending. Yeah? That's good advice in general. Whether it's a Twitter message or instant message, email.
There are 2 thoughts about the internet. One is it remembers everything, and one that it remembers nothing. I think you have to be on the safe side and assume it remembers everything. And anything you can put up on any of these network sites may come back to haunt you. This is something I try and get across in my own students, across from my team. It's something that perhaps a thrill of just putting everything up, a photograph, where we're going on holiday. Oh, 3:30 Saturday, I'm flying off to, excuse me, hang on a minute. You're giving quite a bit of information away there. Something else that's quite interesting, most of us tend to think of the internet as being this huge global digital phenomenon, a network of networks. So that anything we do here locally, in this room, on this PC, on this iPhone, will instantly be accessible to everyone. I am an ex-geographer, and I'm very interested in how the online universe is actually becoming intensely geographical, not just digital or cyber. Here are 1 or 2 examples. Those of you who were around at the time, 4 years ago, remember that George Bush Jr., the second, made it illegal for Americans to spend money through services like PayPal and so on online gaming sites, particularly those outside the US of A. And a number of major online websites were shut down or to retrench withdraw operations because of it. A certain degree of ideological protectionism going on there. Question?
Can I ask, I've been reading a lot of articles about how every time you take a picture somewhere or are on your phone, there's like geographical like systems within like our cameras and our phones that like instantly is accessible to anybody who knows how to get that information. It can tell exactly where we were, what picture we took. Like, to me, that's a huge invasion of privacy.
It comes with the territory, unfortunately.
I know if I take a picture of you know, Buckingham Palace, everyone knows where that is. Like, it's not that private, but some things.
You have services at 111 in the US, 111, is that
411.
Sorry?
Information service?
No, the emergency dialing code. We have 911. 911. Very good, good step. 911. I think about 4 years ago, legislation was passed in the US to make it mandatory for all new services and all new cell phone providers to enable location finding as a legal requirement on purchase of the product. Right? So if you've got a cell phone, you have to have this ability built in so that emergency services, if you are caught in a problem situation, could immediately find you even if you were disabled or you were unconscious or whatever. So at one point, everybody has it for that particular reason. The question then is, how can you disable it? I always say, just switch your phone off. Because unless it's active, it can't be transmitting messages. The moment you switch your phone on, remember, it's sending messages out to look for the antenna. Can you see on the roof of that building opposite? See that cluster antenna? Yeah? Whenever I switch my mobile phone on, the first thing it'll do is just tell me how many bars. What's the reception like? What does that mean? It means it's actually sending out messages saying, hey antenna, where are you? Can you talk to me please? And if you can't find them quite close by, it'll boost the signal and you can see the bars shooting out of it as it looks further and further afield until it finds them. If you're way, way, way out of reach, like the guy in 127 hours, that climber, you know, then clearly it's not going to find them anyway. But the reason I'm just mentioning that is the moment you're within 3 antennae, and it's frequently the case you're range of many more, particularly driving down the freeway, let's say, they can do what's called triangulated location, so your internet provider knows precisely where you are within about 10 to 15 meters. In this country, we have a Freedom of Information Act, not as good as your own in the USA, which permits me to go and interrogate my log of all the locations. The government is now trying to get access to that information. That's what they're doing. Okay. What can we do about it? Discuss it with your tutor. It is a problem, thanks for raising it. It's like with Google, and I'm sure that Evangelos knows I told you about how much information Google takes about it, or Facebook. When you get free services, there's an old saying that says there's no free lunch in this world. Yeah. What it means is there's always a transaction, there's always a price to pay. The price to pay normally in the e-universe is information rather than money. Money, yes, that's an added bonus, but information is what it's all about. Okay? I have a plastic card here called a Nectar card. You won't have it in the US, it doesn't matter. Whenever I go to various outlets where products that are associated with this plastic card are sold, whenever I go fill up with gas, petrol, my details are taken and passed on to Nectar. And that's why I'm asked explicitly at stores, oh, do you have a Nectar card? And when it first started happening, I didn't know why they'd ask me. That's a strange thing to answer. Yes, I have. Well, could I swipe it for you? I swiped it. Why? They were taking the information. They took my money for the product, and then they took my information as well. And they were building up vast databases, profiling my pattern of expenditure, where I'm buying things, when. This is part of the transaction with the devil. Okay. You have to be aware of it, and I'm sure you'll become more and more aware of it. There are seen and unseen exchanges of value going on in the e-universe, and this is one of them. So thanks very much. Very important point. As is the point about WikiLeaks. Are we beginning to see the beginning of the erosion of fundamental freedoms of speech on the internet through the WikiLeaks process? Again, very well worth chasing up. I was talking a little bit about geography and what I call the lumpiness of the internet, the lumpiness of the web. In other words, it's no longer a global, even playing field, this e-universe. It's become geographically, there are peaks and there are troughs. Just the end of last year, one state at least has begun to unravel George Bush's Gaming Act and making it possible for online gaming to occur in one state at least. Well, that reminds me of the Indian reservations where you can go and go to casinos, which are licensed in many states in the USA. This could be happening again online. Gibraltar, that tiny bit of rock on the southern coast of Spain. Many of you from the USA have never heard of it, but never mind. For those of you who have got any Spanish roots or Hispanic roots will realize there's a huge bone of contention between Spain and the UK. We own it, they don't, and it's attached to Spain. They decided a few years ago, particularly boosted by the legislation in the USA, hey, if George W. doesn't want it, we certainly do. And they invested a huge amount, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, in a huge optical fibre cable around all the way from the UK to India, and they're sitting right in the middle of that. And they're particularly using that to boost the attractiveness of Gibraltar for e-gaming companies. You've got something like 20 international e-gaming companies already sitting in Gibraltar. Geographical lumpiness. The internet has a geography, a real physical geography as well as a digital geography. It's very interesting. How many of you heard of the phrase digital divide? Just myself and Steve. Sorry. The digital divide is an expression given to describe customers or consumers or people living in areas, countries, regions of the world where some have good access to digital services and some have poor access. And frequently, that accessibility to internet and mobile phone services mirrors other lack and gains of access to other services. So poor people tend not to have as much access to, say, paid broadband than richer people. And so there's an unevenness in the consumer landscape, consumer territory. And if you're trying to reach out to certain communities through IB targeting, geo-targeting, for example, then sometimes you better just ignore the poor districts of the cities, the inner cities of the USA as well as of the UK, because you're just not going to get the kind of penetration of your products and services in those areas. Again, it's all a matter of real physical geography, but it's expressed in the cyber universe. Okay? So remember that geography, real geography, is as important in the virtual world as in the real world.